It's really about understanding the TAM, total addressable market, looking at, reading up, doing a bunch of research as like a good PM does, kind of stuff on that. And then just sort of interviewing and talking to, customers or potential customers and narrowing down into certain focuses that I do. So I do a lot of real estate. I've done, on that side of things. I've done e-commerce and startups on that side of things.
Mm-hmm.
So I lend myself towards the areas that we kind of know that we can build traffic and knowledge and have some domain expertise on that type of stuff. Right?
What advice would you give to our listeners as they are looking ahead or as they are starting their businesses?
The more you can get out and talk to your customers, the more you'll learn. They have a wealth of knowledge, right? And most businesses never call them up. After their job is done, they never call them up. They never think, hey, what did you think? Or can you tell us what you think? And, hey, we're thinking about doing this. Don't be afraid to talk to your customers. They're very happy. If they had a good service with you, they'll be happy to talk to you. But my one book that I really, truly love was The One Thing by Gary Keller. It was all about his whole thing is about dominoes, like small dominoes lead to bigger dominoes, right? So you start small, it knocks over a bigger one, and a bigger one, a bigger one, a bigger one, and you kind of go from there, right? And so that's really taking the one focus on that. And that's how he grew his real estate empire by doing a single thing and then doing it very well. And that's kind of the same thing that we're trying to do sort of in our accounting and bookkeeping side of things, is that small things, iterating on that, giving good customer service, figuring out how we can use generative AI into things, with large language models, making things super, super simple for people to understand what their monthly, where their cash flow is, what their income statement is, and breaking it down to 8th grade level.
Well, welcome to the Priceless Conversations, the podcast where we navigate the art and science of product management, pricing, automation, and AI. We do this with a bit of wit and some occasional dashboard-related war stories. I'm Satya, a scientist who has turned into product management. And yes, I still use a lot of data, a lot of research, and connect several dots across different domains to solve some problems.
Thanks, Satya. Welcome everyone to Priceless Conversations, where we explore the art and science of product management through transformative ideas and authentic stories. I'm Amit, your host, CPO, and builder of dashboards, destroyer of unnecessary features, and your guide through the weird, wonderful, and widely fascinating world of product management. We have with us today Andrew, who's been an amazing product person all along, someone who's been in the industry for more than 15 years now, has worked with amazing brands, and has been a coach and and one of the best people I know in LA. Andrew, why don't you share a bit about your story?
Sure. Thanks for sharing. A pleasure to be here on this podcast. Looking forward to sharing my thoughts and learning from you as well, as any good product PM would do. Yeah, so my name's Andrew. I've been doing product for, about 15 years or probably more. Started very small when the e-commerce craze was going, opened up an online e-commerce pet website. We ramped that up from $0 to $1 million. Then from there, progressively worked on deal sites, chat commerce or AI commerce before it was AI commerce, working on that side of things. Worked my way into doing consulting on other things with many different businesses, helping out from the product marketing side to go to market side of things, as well as then working for an advertising agency, working for a company called Beachbody On Demand, which was an exercising company that did, which was a multi-level marketing company, which was quite amazing on that. And then worked at Chipotle, which was very interesting. And now I'm with a company called Leidos, which is a defense contractor that works with the government, believe it or not. and we still have a job. So that's good stuff. And then I'm doing things on the side, starting up an accounting bookkeeping company on the side, bringing in new technologies, AI and stuff like that into the realm. So that's kind of my thing. I'm a product person at heart, and I enjoy it. Always changing, always going on. So that's kind of me in a nutshell over my 15 years of career.
Thank you so much. Having navigated both the fast-paced world of Chipotle and then to in healthcare and defense and then in accounting, how have you seen the GTM strategies evolve?
That's a good thing. I mean, they're all different, right? Chipotle, when I was there, our key thing was a throughput metric, and everything had to do with throughput, regardless of what it was. So, go-to-market strategy all tied around getting more traffic, getting more sales, reducing time, reducing orders, reducing everything, working with delivery partners, things like that. On the defense side, healthcare side, it's a little slower of an engine. You're working more government, you're working with Department of Defense, you're working with the military, you're working with Department of Homeland Security, Railroad, Department of Interior. As you know, governments are much slower. So there's different types of things, much more complicated type of things. And then switching to accounting, it's just that I want to do something for myself. Basically, a business that has growth, that is underserved, I think, is sort of needing a lot of people over there. And I think it's something that, in the US, it's death and taxes. So everybody needs accounting and bookkeeping. So scaling that up and ramping into that kind of a thing.
Amazing. Yes.
So, Andrew, you have your own business, also do a lot of work alongside. Then, how do you really manage or balance a very strong product vision that also is with higher market demand? So, this is on your side, on the business side of your life. And when do you even think about executing this vision, meeting the market demand, and then launching new features or services?
Sure. Yeah. So we're talking sort of more on the accounting side of things or the business side of things that I'm doing now, kind of thing. Yeah.
Yes.
So on that side of things, it's really about understanding the TAM, total addressable market, looking at, reading up, doing a bunch of research as like a good PM does, kind of stuff on that. And then just sort of interviewing and talking to, customers or potential customers and narrowing down into certain focuses that, I do. So I do a lot of real estate. I've done, on that side of things, I've done e-commerce and startups on that side of things.
Mm-hmm.
So I lend myself towards the areas that we kind of know that we can build traffic and knowledge and have some domain expertise on that type of stuff, right? The key thing is that really is you need to go into particular markets, very narrow focused on things. So for real estate, right? And going after that side of things and build from there. And then once you accomplish those types of things, right, you can then jump to other markets. But a lot of the crossover is going to happen on those types of things. So, when we go to a go-to-market strategy, we look at our competitors, obviously, but don't, to a point, we don't like, oh my God, they got this and we have to have this. In the tax and bookkeeping business, it's really about customer service, that we found, right? Like, I have a partner who's a CPA as well, in this. And so, and I have more of the technology background. So we kind of blend certain things together. He helps me on things. We have roles. We kind of know our defined kind of roles on those types of things. And, and we grow from there, right? And so that's kind of really our big takeaway here is to grow small, get customers, get clients, be able to have referrals is our big thing. And, getting one or two or three in the beginning, getting them to treat them right, understanding what they're wanting, and then sort of growing from there. Accounting, and bookkeeping is fairly standardized, right? I mean, but it depends on how well you give it tax advice and things that you do for those clients, right? And that's really my emphasis on this business is really incredible customer service and incredible tools to make things easy for the customer, things so that, you're taking, you kind of do like the mom's test, right? Like, could my mom, right? And if she could understand this, then we do have something here, right? So, that's kind of really where we look at this stuff. And obviously from a go-to-market strategy, it's a lot of content, right? A lot of content, 2 videos, Instagram, finding out where our clients or customers are at, and then trying to drive them into our funnel.
In micro niche that you start, basically your market, do you define this more as micro niche or hyper niche, and then going?
Yeah, so I think, the thing is that, we want to go where there's a lot of business, right? In terms of dollar wise. Most people don't know their books. People are just like, hey, here's my accountant. I just don't know anything with numbers, right? They just don't know anything.
That's the same story everywhere.
Everywhere, right? It's just like, and that's the way it should be. And that's the way it should be. You should have the ability to have enough confidence with somebody that you can ask enough questions or get enough information that you feel confident that they can answer what it is, right? And that is really the ultimate thing. So when we look at a niche, we go into real estate. Now, real estate is huge. There's multiple different ways on this, right? You've got short-term rentals in the US, what they call Airbnb. You've got midterm, sort of that, where they're like, the short-term are like the weekend stays and things like that. The midterm rentals are like months off. And then you have the people who are sitting in in their apartments or in their homes that are year leases kind of things, right? So you have those. And then you have investors, and you have those people who are buying and building and flipping, right? And then you've got the apartment managers and real estate, agents and things like that. That is very, so it's very wide and diverse. And people really don't know. A lot of people in real estate don't know what they're doing, honestly, in terms of books and write-offs. And, they hear things on the internet, they hear things through YouTube videos, and they think that's correct. But, a lot of them really don't have a true understanding. And so that's why we're trying to dispel a lot of disbeliefs, and with our kind of like videos that we do and things like that, to try and get people, kind of involved in that stuff, So yeah, and what we do is we use a lot of AI, believe it or not. Like, a lot of my videos, we write the scripts. I have a couple pictures of myself. I have a great video editor, and we throw that stuff into things, and it kind of translates it into me talking, right? So I can be a lot of places in a lot of areas on the content. So we write the content. It's just that I can't sit there and do all the edits, and I have an editor, to do a lot of that kind of stuff. Yes. So the love of food and the systems that you put in place in a restaurant. So a restaurant is very, very systemized. I mean, you can come up with great dishes, and, you can do fine restaurants. I don't like fine dining restaurants ever. They're too complicated. They're too fickle. People come in, they go out. The only restaurants that I see that you can do scale at are what we call QSR, or quick serve restaurants. So like the Chipotle's, the hot dog places that I've owned, places like that, right? Where you can put systems in place, very much like McDonald's has done. And if somebody goes out, it's kind of like you put your finger in the water, and what happens? It gets filled back up, right? So you can drive people into those kinds of roles and those systems, and you can have it very systemized. And so leading from that into product kind of was the same thing. You experiment, right? Like, so come up with a new dish, you try something new, you have customers, you taste it, you give it out to them, right? You get feedback, you iterate on that, like, oh, they don't like this, they don't like this, right? You pull from other people in the market that had really interesting things. Like, so for example, in California, when I was living, it was in San Francisco in the Bay Area, we ended up, so the whole journey was, we opened up a hot dog stand in Miami, and basically the food from the West Coast, the ideas and the creativity and the worked its way east to like the East Coast, New York, things like that, right? And people don't see certain things, right? And it's much like, it's the US is really big, so you can travel from different spots to different spots. So we introduced garlic fries before people knew what garlic fries were, right? Like, it was like one of these type of things. And when we did that, people went crazy for those things. But that's kind of an iteration type of thing, right? We took something from somewhere else, We put this in here. We took a typical hot dog, and my whole thing was like, look, we don't want to have multiple types of breads. We don't want to have multiple size sodas. We have one size soda, one hot dog bun that we can make everything on and simplify a menu, right? And you go to market with those types of things, right? And then, you can get kickbacks or feedbacks and you can iterate on that, right? What it kind of reminds me of is like, very simple. Like, so here in the US, I know I don't want to go down the road of food all day long, but like, In-N-Out Burger is a very big chain here in California, and they have a very simple menu. They have order 1, 2, and 3, a single, a double, and a triple, or whatever it is. I
I
don't eat.
love that.
Oh, you've been right. And there's a secret menu they have, right? You can get
Wow.
cheese fries, you can get these things, but they're not on the menu, right? And so those are iterations of people who want things, but they know that to keep it a small menu board, they're only going to show 3 things on there and keep it consistent, right? Because they can scale, right? And so if you think of a product, you got to think of it like, how can you scale this, right? And simplicity is the way to scale. If you have so many, spokes in the wheel, how do you focus on what's making money, what's not making, what's losing, where are you going to try? And you split your marketing, you split your message, you split everything. And really it comes down to the whole 80-20 thing, right? And so it's really about like, where are you getting, 80% of your customers that are, giving you that amount of revenue. And it's giving you 80% of your revenue from 20% of your customers, right? And so if you think of it that way, that's kind of how I kind of think of product, right? It's, yes, the shiny syndrome object is always there, right? But keeping yourself focused is the real challenge. And that comes from reading good books, from goal setting to this. I probably read, I don't know, 4 to 5 books, at least 4 books a month, 3 books a month, not reads all the time because I can't do that, but usually podcasts or like audiobooks and things like that. I just looked at my library. I think it was 300 and something plus books, that I have read. And, yeah. So I love reading and getting some of these different things and different ones, like, it can be investments, it can be, products things, it can be, strategy, lots of different things.
Do you maintain a digitalized library of books that you have?
Yes, I do. In terms of, well, my digital library is Audible and everything is there. And sometimes I reread certain books, some fables, some things like that. And other times things. But my one book that I really truly love was The One Thing by Gary Keller. It was all about his whole thing is about dominoes, like small dominoes lead to bigger dominoes, right? So you start small, it knocks over a bigger one, and a bigger one, a bigger one, a bigger one, and you kind of go from there, right? And so that's really taking the one focus on that. And that's how he grew his real estate empire, by doing a single thing and then doing it very well. And that's kind of the same thing that we're trying to do sort of in our accounting and bookkeeping side of things, is that small things, iterating on that, giving good customer service, figuring out how we can use generative AI into things, with large language models, making things super, super simple for people to understand what their monthly, where their cash flow is, what their income statement is, and breaking it down to 8th grade level. And then having the ability to talk strategy of like, well, where do you want to be? What do you want to do? Kind of stuff. And, kind of go that route.
Andrew, bookkeeping is a niche in itself, right?
It
And
is.
it might be coming with its own challenges. It might not. It is for sure might be coming with its own challenges. What unique hurdles did you face or do you face in this business in
Sure.
terms of marketing, in terms of business?
Well, one thing, it's a commoditized business.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
It's a commoditized business. Like, you can get people in different countries to do it for $6 an hour. The question is, how well do they do it? Right. And the second question is, we do bookkeeping, but we also do tax preparation and tax planning. So we knew that we couldn't grow and scale our business if we only did bookkeeping. But what we do is we get them in on a bookkeeping things, and then we talk to them about tax strategy, right? Because they will come with a shoebox of books, of things. Some people have bookkeepers that it gets overly complicated over their head and they can't do it.
Mhm.
Because we have an accounting background, we understand how the bookkeeping goes, right? So when we do bookkeeping, it's pretty, I mean, you can see, I mean, like, I start following people on Instagram and the next thing you know, it's bookkeeping and bookkeeping and bookkeeping. And you see all this stuff, right? And if you want to, there is the low price guys, but you pay for what you get. You can't talk to somebody, you can't have consultation. And if you want somebody professional, we kind of go that. So that's the reason why, the challenges that we have to overcome are definitely the bookkeeping side of things, right? Like everybody does that, but we keep it reasonable, right? Like I know bookkeepers that will charge, $4 a transaction or $3 a transaction, right? And we try and do not a loss leader, but we try to get them in on a bundle kind of thing. Like, hey, do bookkeeping and your taxes that you might be paying $1,800 for. We'll only charge you $500, right? For that. So we bundle.
So, for those who do not know what is commoditized business, can you explain what it is or give more examples on that?
Sure. Check Amazon. You want to see 1,000 spatulas
Mm-hmm.
at Temu and everywhere else? Check that out. It's a commoditized business, something that is basically in a commoditized business that everybody does it, and it's a race to the bottom for the lowest cost of selling a spatula. No matter how great it is, it only flips eggs or it flips pancakes. You can have the most fanciest one, but is somebody going to pay $50 for that, or are they going to pay $3 and get the same results, right? That's what a commoditized business is. And that's what we see bookkeeping is as a commoditized business, because generative AI and things like that can do a lot of that stuff, taking pictures, organizing. But what it doesn't do is it doesn't tell you, hey, you got this in the wrong thing, or this is not categorized, or how do you take this off? And that's where it comes into being more of a professional doing that. And I've heard hundreds of stories or a ton of stories of people saying, oh yeah, my bookkeeper, they did this, but they did this wrong. And a lot of people, you don't need a CPA license to be a bookkeeper. You just need to take a couple courses online that you see, and you start putting them into, QuickBooks, and you just do a QuickBooks, right? And that's it. And that's all they do. But they might not be doing it right, or they have no ideas of the tax implications or things like that. And so that's where, the commoditized business becomes different when you also are able to offer an accounting or tax, advice and things like that kind of stuff, right? And even overlooking books, right? You might come to me and say, hey, I've got my tax thing, and for a free service, we say, hey, listen, if you become our bookkeeper, we can overlook your taxes before you file them to make sure they're filed right. Because let me tell you, I've had plenty of tax people, the guys I've had have misfiled things. Like I just last year, we started this thing down the road, and I had a tax person doing mine, and he categorized it completely wrong for about $20,000. Now, I'm not going to the government and telling them that this is filed wrong, because with Trump and everybody in office, we won't have to worry about that for the next and then statute of limitations will run out, and they'll never find it. But there was a $20,000 or $30,000 mistake on their side, right? And that happens with CPAs. That's just how they do it. They just, quick, and they do their stuff, and they don't check things over. So that's kind of where we see commoditized into more of a bundled service and doing things.
You've already told us about the books that have inspired you. And now when you're running this business, that's a lot of it is into making things simpler for bookkeeping. What are the tools you use to run your business? What is it that you help to bring your product strategy or GTM or your outreach?
Sure. Yeah. So we do, the good old fashioned email works great. It still works. We do SEO. We go to lower, smaller markets when we do our SEO type of things. In there, we're not looking to rank number one for tax preparer, right? But we'd be in a particular city, we might do that, right? We look at cities, where we're doing these things of, 100,000 people type of things. We're not really looking to do Los Angeles, and it's too many. So we look to really sort of narrow down our niche into these areas, become a viable person in those communities, and be able to help that. And then, a lot of word of mouth. Like, for example, we had a client who started with us, is kind of, she started, and then she's like, oh, you know what? I got my daughter, and I got my person, and just sort of spread through there, because the know, like, and trust factor happens, right? And so any brand, has to get that know, like, and trust factor in there. And, maybe you don't charge, sort of highest top rate in the beginning, to get that thing is, but don't sell yourself so cheap that people don't trust it, right? And that's a key thing, right? Like, I'd rather, you know, um, not discount pricing. Like, say, oh, well, could you do it for $50? No. Because you know what I have to do? I got advertising. I got lights to pay. I got people in my office that I have to pay, right? So I can't go to $50, right? You can find those guys on Fiverr, or more power to you, right? But you're paying for what we provide. So as a go-to-market strategy, discounting is very dangerous and a slippery slope if you start discounting, because you take $5 off. That cuts into your margins, which cuts into everything you do, from marketing to advertising to everything. What I'd rather do is bundle or price up on things, right? So it's not going to cost me much more to do somebody's taxes, because we know it's, maybe it's 2 hours worth of work, and instead of charging $500, we'll charge you $100, right? So it's the same price, right? But we're still capturing that bookkeeping business of, $90 to $200 a month on that stuff, but we'll throw this in for an added bonus, right? Because you're part of our things. Bundling becomes really important in a lot of this stuff. And, from a marketer's perspective, a lot of accounting firms don't know how to market, don't know how to do email funnels, sending out newsletters, doing social media on a regular kind of basis, providing free value, like download things, calculators, whatever. It doesn't matter. The more people see our stuff, the more we'll, talk to them. We have discovery calls. That's really what we try to bring up on that kind of stuff, and have people within our organization think about ideas of how we can do growth, right? I don't want to be the only person thinking of growth, right? There can be great things coming from people who have indirect, or they see things day to day. And you can learn from those and iterate and grow from those types of strategies. I think you're on mute, Satya.
Sorry. So I just drew a funnel based on the discussion we have had. So hyper niche market, so big bookkeeping within that specific cities, because you mentioned you don't also go for bigger cities, but in the cities you choose, you want to be number one. This is what I understood. And then you want to be visible to as much as possible in those cities. If you look at it, they are pre-existing or coexisting competitors. There might be people who prefer someone over you, maybe. Then how does your marketing really change does it change according to cities? Do you adopt different
No,
strategies?
no, because bookkeeping is bookkeeping, right? Like, we are, there for small business, right? We work with small businesses between zero, well, not zero, but like, but $100,000 up to $5 million, right? Like, that's a kind of a big sweet spot, and that's about 30% of what the small businesses are at. It's about 30. Sorry, it's about 30 million businesses in the US that are in that kind of price range, right? Or in that range. When you get up higher and higher, sometimes they have in-house bookkeepers, right? So they don't outsource. They have their internal people in that stuff. So we find, like, and we try to help those people go from, 100,000 to $1 million, right? And, either we have consultations, because I have marketing background, learn their business, understand their business, and then give them suggestions or things that they could do to help grow their business, right? So other than just doing numbers, we have like an arm where we can sit down and, like, hey, have you ever thought about this? Have you ever thought about that? Have you done this? And help them out. And I mean, I can't tell you how many businesses or companies that I see which have a Gmail or a Yahoo or a Hotmail account. I'm like, for $5, you can have your own domain name. Make yourself look 100 times more professional on these types of things, right? How do I build a website? Well, here's a simple way to do it, right? Like, you don't need much, right, on these kinds of things, right? Simple emails, just, a simple CRM, just putting people into something so that you can recall and, have that conversation with them. Or, it's just like they send out a quote. Like, so many people just send text quotes. I'm just like, really? Like, how do I keep a track of that, right? When I'm asking for quotes, like, we have we use a CRM that is sort of on that side of things. But it allows us to have people upload their files to a into a